What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Coach Approach. The Coach Approach. It's your Coach Blake of the Black Faker, and today we're going to be going over 3 huge mistakes costing ADC's team fight wins. Do you feel like you're having a hard time winning as ADC? Well, this video may be for you, or maybe it won't be. This is the Is It Clickbait series where I, a veteran coach of 8 years, goes over these videos to see if are they pulling a chain, or are they sending some good signals to your brain. I don't know. I just thought it might have rhymed when I... Anyway, if you guys are looking to become a better ADC player, I have released a beginner's guide on ADC. Make sure you check that out. On top of that, fun fact, I actually released an advanced version of ADC on my Patreon, so make sure you guys take a look at that. And on Thursday, the expert guide to ADC is going to be coming out. So, I mean, if you're looking to become better at ADC, feel free. I'll be doing other roles, but let me know in the comments below, which role do you guys want to have another beginners, advanced, and expert guide on? Let me know for sure. Anyway, let's get on to the video. All right, 3 huge mistakes costing ADC's team fight wins. Also, if you guys would like any coaching or any bot reviews, make sure you check on that website, coachblaker.com. We're going to be having some discounts pretty soon, but for right now, the discount that we had is over in February. So if you're trying to use the code CLIMB, it won't work anymore. It's past February. I'm sorry, but be on the lookout because there will be more. Let's go. Let's start.
In a ton of our ADC videos is how team fighting is one of the worst things that you can do and why avoiding it is key to your success. We always advocate for learning how to appropriately side lane so that you can farm 10 CS per minute and become a late game monstrosity.
So he says you don't want a team fight. That's what he advocates in all the videos, but then he says you're gonna farm to then team fight later in late game. What?
Before anyone else.
So I hope he says you have to team fight anyway, because this video would be so redundant.
That being said, team fighting is actually unavoidable.
Okay, I was gonna say, you are out of your mind. Okay, cool.
In League of Legends. Some objectives are too important to give up, and grouping and fighting over them is...
By the way, once again, I just want to say, I'm not here to say anybody's bad or anybody doesn't know how to make content. I'm strictly here to just look at the facts. I don't care how the video is made or anything like that. So when you guys do submit me videos, I'm not BMing the companies or anything, or the corporations, whatever you want to call them. This is just strictly based on, are the facts factual or are they not? And that's when I give a grade at the end to see if it's factual, it's not factual, you know, stuff like that. Not saying all the videos are clickbait, not saying all the videos are good. You know, it's just saying this, the one I'm specifically watching may be the clickbait or may be really good. So just keep that in mind.
Is inevitable in most games. Therefore, we'll be covering 3 major mistakes we see from low ELO ADCs that's making their team fighting experiences worse, and preventing them from consistently winning them more often. One of the biggest mistakes that we see is players overvaluing meaningless damage or target selection.
That's true. A lot of ADCs tend to walk up in the front line just to poke or try to do some damage. It doesn't really do much, especially when it's a target that doesn't even matter.
This is more easily explained by just looking at examples, so let's jump right into one. This game, Ezreal and his team are up a substantial amount of gold over their opponents and are posturing around Dragon to fight for the soul. Although they're late for the Dragon, the initial engage goes pretty well. Brand is super out of position, so they get a free kill to kick things off. The fight scatters and Darius chases towards Senna and Teemo, so Ezreal follows. Here's where he messes up. Let's take a look at everyone's scores. Teemo here is not a priority target. He's not doing too well and he's already quite low. Ezreal will of course E forward and try to take him out while putting himself in position to be easily blasted by the fed Senna. Let's rewind back to this moment. Lesson 1 here is that you don't need to finish off kills. It can feel annoying when someone gets away with no HP, but at this health level, Teemo dies to a gust of wind.
True. I don't know about a gust of wind. That's definitely not a gust of wind, but you know, I see where he's going. Funny how he says that he's saying who's fed and who's not, but if you look at it, Teemo's actually level 17. So although he might not have items, he needs to pull up that thing again. Hopefully he does. But although he might not have items, he still has, you know, a pretty big chance to kill Teemo. Not kill Teemo, I'm sorry, Ezreal, if he goes on the Senna and misses, or Senna heals herself with Q, which she probably will, and she probably won't die in one shot. So that means that Teemo will turn around. I actually think going on Teemo is fine here as long as he ran away afterwards, kiting backwards toward Tribush. I don't actually think the play that he went for is bad. I just think that what he did afterward could have cleaned up just the fact that he was dying. Especially because he has flash.
Cannot participate in the fight anymore, and he's as good as dead. All he gives you is 300 gold, which is meaningless at this stage of the game. Therefore, Ezreal should obviously just hit the Senna while she's preoccupied finishing off his Darius. That would be a much better use of his time, since killing the Teemo is kind of pointless at this moment. But the bigger lesson here is actually to just take a look at the state of the fight in general.
Teemo's not full build, but he is higher level. Let's continue.
Hecarim is massively fed, and we can clearly see on the minimap that after killing Brand, he was looping around to flank everyone.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if he decides to go on Teemo and then kite down to the Tribush, Senna's going to either chase Ezreal, which he could just constantly fire off Qs, or he's going to go run back into Hecarim, and Ezreal just goes back and squishes him. Like, it's a very easy fight, and like I said, Senna might not have been the go-to play, because he could have just potentially like whiffed everything. I've been there. A lot of you guys has been there. That's more of a for sure kill that Ezreal went for than trying to go on the Senna and just be kind of outplayed. I don't even know if she has flash or heal. So yeah, there's a lot to this fight that more that meets the eye.
This can be a hard mindset to get into, but you should.
Because you see, look how much HP he has left. And she's already looking to retreat. The only reason why Ezreal dies here is because he tries to fight her instead of just run away and keep queuing backwards while Hecarim cleans up.
You should always ask yourself, especially
like if he wouldn't have tried to take that fight, he was good. Because the thing is, if we go back,
this can be
look at Teemo's HP. If he would have went on Senna and he would have whiffed, Teemo would have blasted him, and he would have just been dead. Because that's 2v1. So getting the Teemo out for sure is the right play. It's just the fact that he played that afterwards poorly is why he died. The whole play was fine. He just didn't play the last part of it fine. So I don't really like this example of meaningless target prioritization. Is that even a word? Prioritization. There we go. That's the word. I don't like this example because it doesn't really show much. I don't really like it personally.
Hard mindset to get into, but you should always ask yourself, especially as an ADC, if you doing it.
And there was a shroom right there. So if this man did hop onto that Senna with that combo, he'd be blown up as it. No, I don't agree with this at all.
Anything really matters in the fight at all. Ezreal making a big play isn't going to win this fight. It's the fed Hecarim that was hard carrying the game that is going to kill everyone. We can see that come to fruition after Ezreal's death. Hecarim obliterates Senna on contact and proceeds to clean up the rest of the fight. At the end of it all, Hecarim is the only person left standing and proceeds to push mid for the inhib. Looking back at this moment one final time, Ezreal should have the mindset to realize that his actions are meaningless here. Killing Teemo does nothing, and eating forward just gives Senna the chance to score a counter kill. If Ezreal had just been patient and waited for Hecarim, they can clean the fight together, and instead of getting just one.
So he just said go on Senna. Then he just says be patient. I'm confused. Do you want me to fight the Senna here? Or do you want me to just sit and do nothing? It doesn't make sense. As I said, like, the way that some of these videos are constructed are to make it seem like you don't know common sense. Common sense says if I'm waiting for Hecarim to loop over, then I shouldn't even be fighting. And I should just stall and hit Qs. But then, you know, if we're saying, well, if we could go on Senna, Teemo's not dying, so I'll jump on a shroom most likely, which is exactly what would have happened, and then I would have been blasted anyway. And on top of that, he said that Hecarim is the fed player, which that's the guy that matters the most. So why would it matter what my actions do? It just, I don't know. This whole scenario, let's just move on.
Just been patient and waited for Hecarim. They can clean the fight together, and instead of getting just one inhib, they could easily get two. That leads to an easy Baron capture after, which should easily close out the game. Let's look at another example from this Ashe. Together with her team, they're pushing mid, desperately trying to get something in return after the enemy team got Baron. Luckily for them, Akali misplayed and got taken out basically for free. Immediately after, Ashe makes a similar mistake to Ezreal. She moves forward to get a few auto attacks onto Rengar. Why? What's the point? Does this damage do anything? It's not like she or anyone else can follow up on it. What is the purpose of doing damage to Rengar here? These are the kind of questions that you should be asking yourself when teamfighting and reviewing your own replays.
Honestly, if he would have just attacked Rengar and walked towards the Evelynn that's flanking around, kind of like in the last example, they could have one-shot the Rengar. I'm not saying that's what the Ashe was thinking. I'm just saying that is a possibility.
Overextending for that meaningless damage just puts her out of position and allows the Nico to come in and instantly kill her. Looking back, all Ashe had to do was hit the free Nautilus here while kiting toward a safer location. From there, she can still do damage, but also be able to react to any threats that come from either side of the jungle. Now, we're not trying to be hindsight analysts here and say that this small positioning fix would have won her.
Yeah, I was gonna say that definitely would not about that. She was still gonna die even if she walked up. Like, that was pointless. As I said, if she would have seen the Nico and then kite it to the Evelyn, like downwards, I can use my mouse. Huh? I'm trolling, pointing. Kiting like downwards like this, and then went this way towards the Evelyn. Definitely the better play there instead of like kiting upwards, because she would have got clapped anyway. She's level 16. There's no way she lives. So unless the Nico's very, very bad.
The fight. That being said, it's
I mean, look at that auto.
better than pushing forward for irrelevant damage.
Yeah, if she would have walked to the Evelyn instead of like kiting and trying to fight that,
That puts her into a
we would have been in the same situation up here because Nico just would have got a triple.
horrible position with no way out. It's crazy how often we see this mistake.
I mean, that like scene makes more sense. I do agree that she definitely agreed it. If she had the thought process of going to the Evelyn, that would have been a little bit better, but clearly she didn't, right? So kiting upward would have been the better situation because she wasn't thinking about the other situation. That one makes a little bit more sense than that last scenario before, for sure.
Very likely, this is a symptom of having chat available in low elo and players constantly telling you stuff like, dude, hit the carry, what are you doing? This likely leads low elo ADCs into having a terrible mindset that they should always be looking to do damage to the most valuable target at all times.
I don't usually see people flame the ADC for not targeting the, unless it's you're targeting the tank, that which makes no sense, right? Especially if you're not a tank shredder, you should be focusing the other things. But in a scenario kind of like this, you see how he's going for the Ezreal instead of going for the one right here. This is just a way easier kill to pop off. So it's not necessarily you should be aiming what's in front of you. You should be aiming potentially. It's always very difficult. If you're in a safe position, and then let's say use that Ashe and Nautilus situation, Nautilus won't do any damage to her. So why would she focus the Nautilus, right? Which is why I said it's kind of okay. The fact that she walked past Nautilus. Now, we should have known by the map that Nico was looping around, which means your only escape would have been the funnel to the Evelyn. And which is why I said that compounds on each other. The fact that she didn't think about that did kind of cost her, game there. But I more or less disagree with the fact that you should always be shooting what's in front of you. I'm not saying that's what he said. Let's see if he clarifies. But from what I've heard, you're not supposed to focus the carries, and that's definitely incorrect because if they misstep your ADC, you just pop them and it's free. So we'll see.
Even though that can very, very easily get you killed. Almost every high elo ADC.
See, I don't like that replay. She dies because she's bad. She did not die because she focused Ezreal instead of Orianna. I do not like this clip at all. Should I see? Let's see. The master. Okay, let's look that person up. If you're wondering why I'm incognito, it's because of the master. If you're wondering why I'm incognito, it's because I don't really want their stuff in my feed. Okay, yeah, it's a gold kit. I mean, that was pretty obvious. I was like, if that was a high elo player, there's no way she would have died to Orianna. So we're just looking kind of at a gold game. I really feel like videos like this, looking at low elo plays, trying to, I guess the video title is why low elo ADCs lose fights, but it's just a lot easier to point out why someone does something bad if you're looking at a low elo play. You know what I mean? If you're looking at high elo play, it's a lot harder to focus on what they're doing bad because they're doing things so well, which is why usually when I do videos and I do things about, about like certain concepts, it's always from a high elo perspective or just on my main account in general. I will never just go to a low elo game or start smurfing or, just to prove a point. Like I said, this doesn't make sense because this play wasn't that bad and neither was the Ezreal play. The Ezreal play was fine. If that was a high elo player, he would have killed the Teemo, which was fine, and then kite downwards. It's not about, it's just easier to see the example because they're dying and this is low elo. If I put a low elo clip of like ADC, this is why you should always use traps on Caitlyn, and the player just never traps. Well, if you put a trap there, it would have snared him and you would have got the free kill. Obviously. But, you see kind of how that makes it seem like you don't know? You know already. It's common sense. She dies because she got Orianna ball. She should have watched out for the Orianna ball. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry. Let's get back to the video.
Even though that can very, very easily get you killed. Almost every high elo ADC will literally tell you the same thing when it comes to team fighting. As the ADC,
You see, she definitely should have been focusing the heck room there.
don't need to overthink things. Since you're so squishy, you should generally just hit what's free and in front of you. This is literally the most consistent way of winning fights as an ADC.
Not every time. As I said, there are circumstances where if you can bypass that Alistair, that Nautilus, that Leona, if you can get past them and just pop the person that's blowing up your team, you're good. Because what this does is if you have a tank in front of you as an AD carry and you're focusing the tank, that is what the tank wants you to do. If you have no tank on your team and all you're doing is trying to chunk this tank, especially if you're not a tank shredder, you're going to lose the team fight. Why? Because your team isn't tanky enough to actually last. There's so many games where you guys are like, I have no front line. I have no front line. I have no front line. That's why you have to get past their front line to then go ahead and get killed. Now, there's a lot of scenarios to where you have to set yourself up properly to do that. But there are a lot of scenarios as well where like you could just walk right past the person and shoot the person behind. I don't know if this is a good example because like obviously she was doing the right thing. But hear me out here.
ADC will literally
so Rammus, is that Rammus? That's Riven. So Riven goes in, right? Riven just used her entire combo. We see Hecarim rolling up. If we really want to as Senna, we could just be going over and trying to sidestep and go to Hecarim. Why? Because we realize Riven's focusing Udyr, and on top of that, she just expended her entire kit. So she has nothing really left here. She's very safe.
The same thing.
So if she decided to go on that Hecarim and snare the Hecarim, because we know Riven has no abilities, she actually could just blow this dude up and kill him.
When it comes to team fighting.
But you see, she's constantly focusing that Riven. Why did I say Rammus?
As the ADC, you don't need to overthink things. Since you're so squishy, you should.
And then she's still backing up being scared when she definitely could have double killed these two.
Generally just hit what's free and in.
Let's just see. BTVPFY. 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 Please be high elo. Okay. NHAT Gaga. What? NHAT. This just seems like a normals game with those type of names. Like just boosted account. Okay. Anywho, back to the video.
In front of you. This is literally the most consistent way of winning fights as an ADC. The second big issue that we see a lot in low elo marksmen is almost always going down.
What I see, honestly, this seems really, really bad, and it's not to bash, but what I see is that I believe, because this is a skill cap video, I believe they do VODs, right? And I think what they're doing is taking the VODs and using them as clips instead of going to get the clips themselves. So that's why it's a lot easier to make these constant videos, because everybody's consistently just bringing in VOD after VOD after VOD. And if you got like 100 VODs, technically, I don't know if they do, I'm just saying, if you got like 100 VODs, it's very easy to then pick out a video based off, you know, okay, well, there's like 8 ADC VODs. Let's just cut them all up of team fights and then just clip them together and then talk over it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying the quality is poor. I'm just saying, like, it just kind of sucks that they're not going after the content, you know? If we're really trying to see the mistakes that low elo ADCs have, why don't we look at a high elo ADC game and we talk about those mistakes that cause team fights? Because it doesn't matter if it's a low ADC or not, you should be able to know why ADCs lose team fights. So in that situation where if it's like, okay, well, you see they're focusing the right target, the target in front of them, go to a high elo game and then also show like this is why the ADC is doing. Because 9 times out of 10, like I said, the way that they're saying to play it would not be how a high elo player plays it. So it's very, very, very strange to me that they're pretty much teaching you. It's pretty much saying like, it's not geared towards getting you better at 80. It's very, oh my God, I sound so like contradictive, but it's very hard to say. Let me just continue the video.
Down with the rest of their team. Being an ADC is kind of like being a crew member on a ship. You can't steer the ship like the captain does, but you're obviously an essential part of the team that helps get the ship to its final destination.
I agree with that quote or that analogy.
As a crew member, you do not decide the course the ship is taking. The captain is usually your tanks or engaged support who dictate your route. And sometimes your captain is going to steer the wrong way, and that is most definitely not your fault. There is nothing that you can do about that. What is your fault though is not being on a lifeboat 10 minutes before the ship collides with a glacier. Let's take a look at that clip again. Tristana and her team have a sizable lead and are looking to press their advantage. But as solo queue players do, Yasuo and Udyr begin to fight at a really awkward location that gives the enemy team the advantage of going in and out of base at their pleasure. As the fight goes on, we see Udyr in CC being railed on by the free firing Vayne. On top of that, Yasuo is in a hook and the enemy team is mostly full HP and ready to continue fighting. Tristana should just press W and get out ASAP. As an ADC, you need to be able to recognize that a team fight has gone south and instantly evacuate the area. Maybe it's the fear of being pinged as your team wipes.
It's not necessarily a thing about if a team fight goes sour. It also just depends on how ahead or behind you are. If you were ahead, you probably could have turned that fight, you know what I mean? But if we look at that clip, you see she's level 10. You see that, I don't know if we can see her items with, oops, I'm trolling. It's right here.
If that's what you're...
I don't know if you can't see her items. So they didn't, like, I don't know what the items are. But, did she go Hella Blades? Is that a thing? I mean, maybe? I don't know. I feel like press is just always... Anyway, so with this here, it's like you potentially can clean this up if you were ahead. But we know that she's behind, so it's like, I'm out. So it's not necessarily the team fight going south. It's more of like you should pay attention to how ahead or behind you are and use that to determine if you should be able to team fight or not. It's a big difference between like if a team goes south, because with that idea, you'll never be able to turn team fights. And sometimes as ADC, you have no other option other than to team fight. And if you think, oh, it's going bad, I must get out, even though you actually have the power to turn it, because I've seen it when I'm coaching, you'll end up losing the game. So I kind of agree, disagree. I'm just going to say, like, it's based on how ahead or behind you are. Plus, the fact is, like, if it's going bad or if it's going good, right? If you're behind and the team fight looks great, you can still even win that fight because, you know, everybody's doing well. If you're ahead and your team fight's going poor, you can still probably turn it. So that's just kind of the thing that I want to say. Never really think a team fight's over because someone gets caught out or someone's getting blasted, especially if you're ahead as AD carry.
Is about leaving people, then you need to mute and trust yourself. Dying because you don't want to be flamed is literally the worst reason to die in this game.
That's true. I don't really see it as in ADCs though. I see it more on supports, supports and junglers. Those are the roles that usually like tend to do things because they're pinged rather than doing things on their own time. So I don't really think it's ADC. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. You guys get flamed as ADC? I know when I play, I have an account for each role because I want to know what it's like being in your shoes and climbing in your shoes. But when I play ADC, I don't actually have that issue. So
let's look at...
Then again, I have all my chat muted, so I wouldn't know.
Another example of a similar situation. Kai'Sa and her team get a kill on an overextending Wukong and Senna, and proceed to convert that into Baron. A little later, they're pushing bottom and decide to rotate toward mid. As they are, her team decides to settle in for a fight in the middle of the enemy jungle. Let's consider a few things here. Number one, they have Baron. When you have Baron, you push towers, you don't look to fight. The point of Baron is mostly to buff minions. The combat stats it gives aren't that crazy. Number two, Kai'Sa's Vladimir is top without teleport. This will be a 4v5. Number three, Kai'Sa has no self-peel tools available besides Flash at the moment, and she's versus a Zed and a Wukong. Just leave. Go mid and push. Let your three teammates die. Your goal is to get out of low elo, right? You won't do that by committing to every call your low elo teammates make. Most of their calls are bad. It's a really valuable team fighting skill to know when to immediately dip out of a situation. Like we said, the bad fight isn't your fault, but it's definitely your fault if you die following an obviously bad call. And this final clip is just to demonstrate...
Personally, I don't like them constantly using the term low elo to describe fights. There's bad fights in high elo too. It's a very, he is right about saying you should know when you shouldn't be fighting versus when you should be fighting. That is true, but having it seem like, well, all calls in low elo are bad and all calls in high elo are good is false. They're going to have the same good or bad call scenarios in low elo and in high elo. There are really no difference. People just sometimes have bad calls. People just sometimes have good calls, you know? So I don't really like that. In that scenario, yes, he's right. She should have pushed, but it's not because a low elo player called that scenario. It definitely is a, there's bad calls in high elo, even in top challenger, I've seen it, so.
A good example of when an ADC did things right. Kai'Sa was bottom fixing a wave while her team randomly decided to fight without her. She manages to get there, and only her Graves has died so far. As the fight continues, Wukong lands a decent 2-man knockup. Kai'Sa stays away. Seraphine lands a massive 4-man ult. Kai'Sa stays away. Yasuo lands a juicy 3-man knockup. Kai'Sa stays away. Absolutely beautiful. The discipline to realize that every one of those plays was just a bait that would have gotten her instantly killed is the sign of a player who has had enough of solo queue stupidity. That's exactly how you should aim to approach the dumb situations that your teammates try to put you in.
Just to add on top of that, you see that there's no minions, so she's not really losing out on anything. There's no barons, there's no dragons. That fight isn't worth. There's nothing to gain out of it other than being able to take their towers, but it isn't necessary. So it's not just the fight in general. Also think about what are they going to get if my teammates do die? Because if this is a game-winning thing where, like, if my team dies, we lose, you're not 1v5ing under a tower. You best try to kill some people before that fight's over. So at least, hey, I took out 2, I took out 1. It's good enough. And they can't run down our thing. But if these minions were here and it was really late into the game, I can't see the death timers, unfortunately. But we're at 28 minutes. So you want to say probably it's about a good 50. 35 to 40, maybe? I don't know, honestly. Never really paid attention to that when the timer is there. But we know we're getting to the 30-minute mark. And about 30 minutes is when, like, one fight can kind of cost the game here, especially in the sped up season that we're in 11. I will say, like I said, if this is the fact where there's a big wave and they're getting ready to end the game off of, like I said, 35 seconds, she should have fought because you're going to lose the game anyway. So I always say this is kind of how fights should be handled. If it's a fight for a dragon and it's soul, you might have to make something happen. Sometimes you have to give it away. It's fine. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying be a little bit more proactive rather than being able I'm leaving, because sometimes you can turn that and at least cancel the drag or scare them off or something like that. Elders the same way. Like I said, though, it's situational. The only time where I think you need to throw yourself at the fight is if the game is actually going to be over. So, like I said, I applaud. This was right. This was very, very right. There's nothing to really be had. She's perfectly fine. But in a scenario where they can end the game, you have to kind of just take that L and, die to basically alleviate some of that pressure. Some of that pressure.
How you should aim to approach the dumb situations that your teammates try to put you in. The third and final mistake that we often see is not utilizing the biggest benefit of having bad teammates. You should most definitely be using your low elo team as bait for important enemy abilities in fights. This Tristana clip is a perfect example of what we mean. Tristana has a death wish since she decided to gale force forward against a Malphite, Yasuo, Shaco team.
Just flash.
She went right into a box, got feared, knocked up, and instantly deleted, and rightfully so.
She only got killed because she's not higher elo. Higher elo would have just flashed. She's not CC'd here.
Went right into a box.
Instantly flash is good, and that means you're baiting out the fact that Malphite ulted. So I don't think the initial play is bad. I mean, she shouldn't have gale forced. I agree, but I don't think that whole situation is why she died. That's not really the case. It's the fact she just didn't use her flash.
Got feared, knocked up, and instantly deleted, and rightfully so. Here's the fun bit. Anivia, likely not intentionally, played this fight correctly. The enemy used...
Yeah, imagine if she flashes there, and the Malphite, like, she knows Malphite ult is coming. It's pretty obvious when he's about to do it, and she flashes. Then that fight would only be a knock up on Kayn and Alistar. That's Kayn just, ults in, and Alistar just doesn't die, and that's a clean team fight right then and there. So I like I said, she just didn't flash. That actually is a really good setup if she just knew, hey, I'm a flash after, and I'm baiting your abilities. So honestly, I think that's fine. She just didn't play it right.
Got feared, knocked up, and instantly deleted, and rightfully so. Here's the fun bit. Anivia, likely not intentionally, played this fight correctly. The enemy used everything on Tristana, so guess what? Anivia is free to hard carry the fight, since the enemy has used all key abilities on the Tristana bait. There's actually a very interesting dynamic that goes on in League of Legends that you should be playing around in order to carry.
Okay, so we got a point of view gameplay here.
More often. Basically, one player has to be sacrificed for the greater good, and it should never be you. Let's take a look at the fight from two very different perspectives. In this game, Senna is hard carrying, and a fight is going to erupt around mid lane. Wukong engages, and basically at the end of it all, his engage allowed Senna and the rest of his team to clean up the fight and win quite handily. This was a good team fight by Senna, She played front to back and benefited from everyone using everything on Wukong by Senna and the rest of his team to engages, and basically at the end of it all, his engage allowed Senna and the rest of his team to clean up the fight and win.
They're making it seem like Senna did something. She didn't do anything, man. Their team definitely... She didn't do anything special, to be real. You can't replicate this because she didn't really do anything.
Quite handily. This was a good team fight by Senna. She played front to back and benefited from everyone using everything on Wukong. But were this...
Wait, let's go back. There's actually...
benefited from everyone using
Wait,
everything on Wukong.
He keeps... There you go. Okay. Let's see. So even though she's 15-3-9, she didn't do anything in that fight. That's kind of bad. It's just the fact that Rail's 0-11, Ezreal's 2-6, Miles is 1-4, and Kane's the only Fed problem on the team. That's just their team comp outbeat theirs, and they got a free pick. Like I said, she didn't really do anything. I'm not saying this player sucks or anything like that. I'm just saying they didn't really do anything in this fight.
But were this a top lane guide, we would be heavily critiquing this Wukong. You see, you can't carry if you're dead. This engage is technically good, but it's overly reliant on his team following up appropriately.
I agree.
Sacrificing yourself for 4 random teammates is not a good idea in order to consistently carry games. You should be the one alive and killing everyone in a fight, not your teammates. So, our advice to Wukong would be to wait for Kane to overextend into Senna and then kill him after he's overcommitted to...
Bad advice. That Kane is super fed. If this was another... the thing is, a lot of these videos are situational based, which is not a way to be learning, because obviously if you can't replicate this scenario, you're probably gonna fail. The reason why this is bad is because Kane can one-shot Senna. That's without a doubt. If he does it fast enough, he's one-shotting, and if you get to higher elo, that's what's gonna happen. Senna should just not be there entirely. And even if Wukong is there, Kane will combo before Wukong ults, which means that she's gonna be dead. And he should be able to A, get away, or B, have enough time for his team to collapse and finish everything. I'm not saying Kane should have went in there. I'm just saying if we happen to have this same scenario where it's my ADC is dealing with the Kane, and I'm going to wait for the Kane to come out, I would ping my AD carry back because she's too close to the fight. Luckily, she had GA, and like I said, she's fed, and so is everybody else. So it's not that bad, but definitely I wouldn't wait for the Kane to go out.
Killing the AD.
I'm not saying he should have went on before. I'm just saying I wouldn't wait for the Kane to do what he wants to do. I would have started something so that he couldn't get to my carry.
ADC. Funnily enough, that's what happens much later into the game. As they're pushing bottom, Senna feels overly confident and tries to zone the enemy team from coming in. Unfortunately,
you see how fast she died? That's what I mean. Wukong would not have been able to stop a Kane from one-shotting.
Rel had flash and hard punished her for mispositioning. Look at the result. The enemy team wasted everything on Senna, so Wukong came in and absolutely crushed this teamfight. Like we said, if this were a top lane guide, Wukong would be getting praised right now. So what we want to get at is that League of Legends is a team game, but should be played very selfishly. A Smurf in low elo shouldn't be playing technically correct, but rather using their low elo teammates' mistakes to their advantage.
You're not a Smurf. You're someone trying to climb. That is a terrible tip.
Just like
we're not... As a coach, I'm not saying he's a coach, but as a coach, you're not supposed to be... You don't want to teach someone how to Smurf. That doesn't make sense. They're not learning the game properly. When you Smurf, you're careless because you can get away with a lot of stuff, not only mechanically, but just macro-wise. There's a lot of, mistakes that low elo players make that you could just capitalize on. Oh, their top laner's getting ready to teleport and there's no dragon up and I could just get free tower. Okay. A high elo player, oh, the top laner's teleporting. I need to match that so we can win this fight. Very different. And so you're gonna basically be putting yourself in a hole because every single time you think you're doing something right, when it gets to an elo where you have to do it properly, but you've technically been smurfing on people, you're gonna be stuck. So I definitely disagree with that. You're not a smurf. You can't be trained to be a smurf. Play properly and I guarantee you'll climb. 100%. 100%.
The Anivia in this clip. The game got infinitely easier for her because her Tristana made such a dumb error. That's how you should think about your teammates. It's not playing together with them.
And that's what I meant. Remember when I said, depending on how ahead you are, you could, potentially be able to win these team fights that are bad. Tristana definitely made a mistake, but because Anivia was able to play it right, she actually helped win the team fight. That's what I mean. So it's not if the fight goes south. There's a lot more to the game than just what's in front of you. And the reason why, you know, a lot of these videos seem to not really work sometimes for you is because what they do is show you examples in front of you. That doesn't help you with other situations. It's always what's in front of me. If this situation is not replicated, how can I win? How can I win then? You know, what do I do if this situation just is not replicated and my teammates are doing everything else? And no, you don't do anything with it, and you just might not be able to pull it off. So there's a lot of factors you want to consider before doing stuff like that. As I said, if she wasn't strong enough, I definitely would have. I mean, she could still play the fight like this because Anivia is Anivia. But if we're talking about ADC perspective, that fight was doomed. But luckily, like I said, Anivia is Anivia. If that was like a LeBlanc, this fight would have went south super fast.
As a cohesive unit.
So it's based on champion, how ahead you are, what items you got, etc., etc., etc.
Rather using them as fodder to further your own goals. Trying to play as a friendly team member is not at all how a good player plays in the...
Didn't he just teleport to help his team? But playing for the team... What? Hold on.
Trying to play as a friendly team member is not at all how a good player plays in low elo.
But he just teleported to make that team fight not bad so they don't lose Baron, which was the correct call. What?
By the way, you should know...
Okay, I think that's the end of the video. What? And on top of that, even if I'm smurfing, I don't know. I don't know. This video's like trying to teach you, but at the same time, it's trying to like tell you to just hard smurf and you win more. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on. Excuse my French. I'm really not sure what's going on. I don't know. Look, I said my piece. There are some useful tips in here, not wrong. As I said, I agree with some of the stuff. Most of the stuff I didn't agree with, but that's just because, like I said, the way it's teaching you is just not realistic. You're not going to be able to actually use any of the information because you have to be put in the same actual scenario to be able to pull any of this off. But I will say there are a little bit of sprinkles of like, oh, true. But for the most part, I'm going to say this is probably like a D-. And the only reason is because they're pretty much teaching you how to be a Smurf. And unless you're a Smurf, you're not doing anything of like turning team fights like that. And then a couple of things were just contradictive. A couple of things just didn't make sense. A couple of things just, like I said, it's a lot easier to point out what someone's doing wrong in lower elo. And it's a lot easier to look correct in lower elo. Right? Versus like if you have a higher elo game and you're demonstrating what you should be doing right, it's kind of hard to demonstrate what you should be doing wrong. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying we're high elo players don't make mistakes. We're all human. We all make mistakes. Doesn't matter what. We all make mistakes. But the fact that we're just kind of using low elo examples, and I do understand the video is titled Why Low Elo ADCs Players Lose Team Fights. It's not really telling me why I'm losing the team fight. You're just showing me clips of people in my elo getting their butt kicked, doing things that you know, that doesn't really help me. Okay, so pretty much to sum it up, he's basically just saying, if the team fights are bad, don't fight it. The other one was like, aim the AD carry and let the person flank, but then he said don't do anything so that the person can flank. And then the other one was like, kite backwards, even though you're kiting basically into Nico, so it doesn't matter. And the Ashe was out of mana. It's just very easy to look very smart when you're looking at things that are just like a whole mess of bad. You know what I mean? But like I said, about D-. If you guys feel differently, let me know. As I said, it's not really to bash. I just want you guys to be able to get better. As I said, this one video does not reflect the entire channel. Does not reflect their entire community. I'm just looking at a specific video and their specific facts. That's all. Not saying the person who voiced it doesn't know anything. Not saying the people who created it doesn't know anything. I'm strictly going off facts here because I want you guys to get better, because I want you guys to understand what's going on. Part of being a coach is to help you guys understand. And sometimes these videos don't help you understand. They're just nice to watch. And if you are watching these for entertainment, by all means. But if you're actually trying to like get better and whatnot, sometimes these videos, they're more entertaining they're more. I know they're easy to digest because they're small, they're shorter, and but it doesn't really give you things you can use. It just kind of shows you what you shouldn't be doing, but that doesn't mean you know what you should be doing. I mean, I don't know. It's like I don't know, riding a bike, right? Like you shouldn't be like going down hills really fast, but you don't really tell me how to not do that if I'm going downhill. Does that make sense? Like you're not telling me how to slowly break myself so that I'm going down at a nice, decent pace. You're just saying, hey, don't go down the hill fast. I know. That's what I'm working on. How do I not go down the hill fast? You know what I mean? But anyway, thank you guys for watching. It's a pleasure. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. If you guys have any videos you want me to watch, please let me know. But without further ado, thank you guys for approaching this like a coach. As I said, beginners, advanced, and expert guide will be on Thursday. Beginner and advanced guide are already out. Make sure you watch that. Till next time, you would always say thank you guys for watching. Thank you for approaching this like a coach.